was supported. And I wrote on oil spills. My major professor had written on oil spills. Isn't that something? Your major professor's doing the thing that you're interested in. That's a big university. He told me that when I applied here, they said to him, they said, listen, we should let this guy come here. We should let this guy come here because if he doesn't find 5 professors here to work with, he's not going to find them anywhere. So I want you to think about that as you were part of this institution. That this institution had people that were part of it that were open-minded enough to say, what, he doesn't ride in cars and he doesn't talk? Let him come here. You know, that says something about the University of Wisconsin and about this program. So I started writing on oil spills. I finished my final exam 2 years later, and my colleague said, John, why are you writing on oil spills? Nobody's interested in that. And what kind of job do you think you can get? I shrugged my shoulders. I didn't know what kind of job. I wasn't really looking for a job. But something happened in 1989, the year I finished my final exam, that changed the world's interest in oil spills. When I say the world, I'm saying the United States interest in oil spills, because that's how we thought. You know, it's just us. Do you know what happened? That's right. The Exxon Valdez happened, and everybody wanted to know about oil spills. The U.S. government wanted to know about oil spills, and there was one person in the United States studying oil spills at a PhD level. So the admiral called him up. He's at the University of Wisconsin. Yes, I'd like to speak to John Francis. He what? What do you mean he doesn't speak? Oh. Vow of silence? Well, can we get him out to Washington? He doesn't ride in motorized vehicles. Listen, is there someone there that's normal I can talk to? And there was, well, I wouldn't say it was normal, but my major professor did speak and he did ride in motorized vehicles. He was actually part of the Nixon White House. And he talked to him and he answered all the questions that needed to be answered. My dad shows up again. He's walking around, he says, you passed your final exams and you're on your way to be a PhD? He's looking around my apartment, he says, you know, my sister said to just leave you alone because you seem to be doing a lot better when you're not saying anything. Which was probably true. And he says, but what are you going to do with a PhD? You don't ride in cars and you don't talk. I hunched my shoulders, I grabbed my banjo, put my backpack on, and I headed east. And when I got to Washington, D.C. on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, 1990, I started to speak. And I said, thank you for being here, because my family had come to hear me speak, and the media had come, lots of friends had come. And the reason why I wanted to speak is because after walking 17 years across the United States, listening and studying formally the environment, I had come to the conclusion that, yes, we are all part of the environment. And if we're all part of the environment, then the first opportunity we have to treat the environment in a sustainable way, and that's that word, sustainability, sustainable, is in our relationship with ourselves and with each other. So, even to understand what sustainability is in how we relate to each other. So it's how we treat each other. That's our first chance to treat the environment in a good way. So it's human rights, it's economic equity, it's civil rights, it's gender equality, it's all the ways that we relate. So the science is important. The hard science help us mitigate problems, to help us measure what's going on. But equally as important, and even more important, is how we treat one another. because that, I find, manifests in the physical environment around us. And if we're not there, if we're not doing that, it's sort of like putting Band-Aids on all the problems. We're not taking care of, well, what's at the root of the environmental problems. And so I started speaking on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day to remind myself that I would speak for the environment. Now, 20 years earlier, someone had said to me, John, do you really want to make a difference? Do you really want to go out there and do something different? You know, and people have told me, no, one person can't make a difference. I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Not only to tell you that, but to, you know, feel that. I don't feel that. I feel that we all can make a difference. Each one of us can make a difference. But if they said to me, John, listen, just get out of your car right now, just get out of your car and start walking east. Yep, just out, and start walking east. You're going to make a difference, buddy. Oh yeah, and shut up too. You're really going to make a difference. I would have thought that they were in that garden, you know, with those weeds. That they were puffing a little too much. But that's what happened. I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens, and that's what I'm sharing with you is what happens in our journey, because I'm really just a part of your journey now. You're a part of my journey, and I'm a part of your journey. So this kind of thing, this life is what we share. And the ability to be empowered to make a difference is what we have and why we're here. To learn, to go out and make change. So I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of my journey and this university and this experience of life. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
And I would be happy to answer some questions before I head home with my family and pack my bags. So if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them, Tom.
How did you do your oral defense?
Ah, yes, oral defense. How did I do that? I had this little dummy, you know. No, it was decided that I wouldn't do an oral, but I had to do 5 papers. I had 2 days to write 5 papers for my professors to do the final exam. And when I had walked to Washington after I had finished my final exam, and I was still silent, so they expected me not to talk for my defense. And really, I don't know if things have changed, but the defense is your right. If you've written your dissertation, I mean, there it is, that's what it is. Do you really need to defend it? If you've written it well, it just speaks for itself. And so the defense is set up that you have a right to defend it. If someone says, well, I call this into question, and you say, well, okay, I can defend that. But you should know your subject. If you did a PhD, you should know it as well as anyone, maybe even more. So I was on the phone. When I started talking, I called up on the phone, and I called here. I was in Washington, D.C. When I was in a big office, I had been made a UN Goodwill Ambassador. And so I was in a kind of an air-conditioned office, and I knew I could see everyone sitting around this little speakerphone in the office right up here. And I did my defense on the telephone. And afterwards, my professor called me, John Steinhardt called me, and he said, well, John, how do you think that went? You know, and I said, John, I'm kind of distant, right? You know, you have to tell me. He says, oh, they loved it. They loved that defense. But you know one thing that really surprised everybody? And I was like, no, John, I don't know. What surprises? You could speak in sentences. And I thought about that, and I said, if I knew that, I would just not have done anything. And I would have just gone, hi, this is John Francis, and I want to do my defense now. And I would just speak sentences. And they would say, he speaks in sentences, give that man a PhD.